Hi, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. Hello. Today we are going to chat about my Literacy Center bundles and not just what's in them, but how to get started with them, how to get organized once you have one, because my Literacy Center bundles for kinder, first, and second grade have a lot of resources in them. And I want to make sure that you know how to use them. I don't want these to just quote unquote sit on your shelf. I want you to be able to use your bundle. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is getting set up and getting started. If you are watching, go ahead and say hi. Let me know you're here. Let me know maybe what grade you teach or which bundle you have, if you have one or if you're thinking about one. These bundles are, I think you can see the first grade one, but I have them for kinder and second. These bundles are on sale in my Teachers Pay Teachers store at Learning at the Primary Pond. I think I stuck the link in there in this post so you can grab one while they're still on sale. But that is happening through Friday, and I'm going to use the first grade bundle as an example of what you would like open up and look at once you have it. Hey, Alicia. Hey, Karen. You are so welcome. Thanks for tuning in today. Okay, so by the way, if you don't know me, my name is Allison, and I'm a reading specialist. I have a literacy blog and Teachers Pay Teachers store called Learning at the Primary Pond, and this week I've been focusing on sharing information about literacy centers and how I do them, how I launch them in my classroom. So that's why we're talking about the literacy center bundles too, because I know that many of you have them, and I want to make sure that you are all set up for this coming school year or whenever you choose to start them. Hey, Susan, good to see you. Hey, Patricia. Hey, Amy. Oh, thank you. Amy said one of the best purchases I've ever made. Awesome, I'm so glad. Hey, Teresa. Okay, cool. So you should hopefully be able to see the screen here, and what I have opened up is the first grade Start Here file. And if you use my resources, you know that I usually title one PDF. It's like a zip file, you open it up, and there's usually one PDF called Start Here. Now in the centers bundle, there's actually a Start Here file that goes for all the centers, like the bundle as a whole. And then there are also Start Here files that are specific to like the little individual centers pack. So as you can see in the first grade bundle, same with kinder and second, there's a partner reading section, an independent reading section, reading response, writing, listening center, word work center. And so those little folders or whatever, they do have their own Start Here files, but there's also one for the whole bundle. And so once you open up, it said, like for this one, it says Start Here, first grade literacy centers bundle. I do have a video for you. So even if you lose this video or can't find it later, no worries. I do almost always provide a video with instructions that you can always refer back to, so that is in there for you. If you're an Australian teacher, if you need the Australian spellings for the bundles, they are right here on this page. So I do have that available if you happen to be using Australian English or the Queen's English. All right, so next up in there is just a basic rundown of how I do my centers. If you haven't watched my webinars and you're just curious about how I set things up, I would take a quick read through this information, or if you just need some new ideas. I have a little bit of assessment stuff here. If you like to keep tabs on your kids and kind of track how they're doing behaviorally and with their work, make sure you print this off and maybe make copies for the year so you can keep track of kids, how they're doing with their independent work. If you want to have your kids self-evaluate, you can make copies of these sheets. You know, maybe that's not something you do every day, but every so often or once a week, you have them self-evaluate. I talk about technology here. And then I have resources for you in the bundle if you want to make your own like interactive whiteboard or just like display of when kids are going to what centers. I have a template with like little graphics for you that you can move around, and that is included in there. Again, this is in the Start Here file for the whole bundle. So when you unzip the bundle, you're going to see the Start Here file, and all that stuff is in there. Okay. Hey, Jilly or Gilly, Angela, Carla, Judy, welcome guys. I know I missed some comments. All right, so we just now took a peek at that Start Here file that goes for the whole bundle. And so the things that you would want to print in here, I would just read like the center's information off of the digital file, but if you want to print those like checklists and the kids self-evaluation stuff, that might be things that you want to print. And I'll actually show you at the end here how I organize the stuff that I do print. I'm just going to talk as we look at the files about what I print, and then I'll show you some more stuff too. All right, so once you've looked at the Start Here file for the whole bundle, then you're going to want to start looking at the individual components. So like I said, There's 6. Kinder actually has 7 components because it has a dramatic play literacy center. But so like, let's say we're using the first grade one and we open up the partner reading center. So this again is called Start Here, but it's in the folder for, in this case, partner reading. Okay, so I've got a table of contents to keep everything straight because I know there's a lot in here. Again, I've got the how to do centers. That is a repeat, so you don't need to look at that because if you've already read it once in the Start Here, that's just for people who only buy one component. The one thing that I would make sure that you read for every single one of those centers is how I run the center. I try to condense it onto one sheet. And then also my suggestions for actually setting up the center. Like, what do you put in it? What does it look like? So after you read that, okay, so these are things that I would print. I would print this sheet that says a list of the lessons that I use to teach the center, which are all included in the same file. And I would also, well, it's on one page, but it also lists the materials in this like pack or whatever. So this will tell you the names right here of all the activities that are in, for example, this partner reading component. So I recommend printing this, and I'll show you more about my binder in a minute, but the reason why I recommend printing it is because I like to have a binder for each one of my centers. Hopefully you can see that. So this is like partner reading, and I like to see at a glance, what lessons do I need to teach at the beginning of the year to set up the center? So that's those. And then also, what materials do I have available to me? And for me, I don't know about you, let me know if you relate to this. So many times, like I'll do an activity one year and then the next year, like completely forget that I did it, completely forget that I have materials prepped. And so I end up doing more work than I need to. Let me know if you ever do that or just completely forget something that you've done. So the reason why I like to print this out then is because you see, or I see, because I'm so forgetful, what I have available to myself, and it's basically all on one sheet in one place. So I would definitely recommend printing that. These are the same assessments that are in the whole big file. Technology is basically the same as the other one. So is the centers board. And then here I just describe, you don't need to print this out, but I just describe like how I rotate out centers, because what I don't do is I don't do like all new centers, on Mondays. I kind of like do it throughout the week, and I do it really strategically. So you can read about that here. Again, we're in the Start Here file for a specific part of the bundle. And then here, this is way too tiny for you to read, I'm sure, but this is the schedule. And this is absolutely customizable. I included a link to an editable version so you can really make it your own and do, whatever meets your curriculum or your schedule. So you have that editable version, but I recommend printing it out. And in my binder, which I saw at the corner of my eye, somebody asked binder size. These are only like 1 inch, I think, because not everything goes in the binder, and I'll show you what that means in a second. But on the back of that first page, I have the schedule. And I know it looks tiny to you, but I wanted it all on one page. So I do recommend printing out the schedule. This is important, you have a different schedule for the partner reading, the independent reading, the word work, the writing centers. If you want to have all of the schedules in one place, I have links for you. Let me grab them real quick, because I know that sometimes it can be tedious. Like I do like to print off each one for each, individual center or whatever, but sometimes you want to look across and say, well, during week 1, what do I have to do for all of my centers? What do I have to do for the writing and the word work and the partner reading, and et cetera, et cetera. So what I did is I created one file where you can look and see all of the centers week by week. It's just in an Excel file. So let me go ahead and drop that link here. Hopefully that will show up. Did it show up? Let me know if you guys see that. I tried to drop the link, and if it doesn't work, I'll come back and do it later, but let me know. It doesn't show up for me for some reason. Yep, there we go. Okay, so there's a Kinder link for the schedule for all the centers in one file. There's a first grade link for all the centers in one file, and then there's a second grade link for all the centers in one file. So that is there for you. Grab it if you need it. But let's move on in our file. So we're still in the Start Here file for like the Partner Reading Center as an example. I also included this in here, and this is something that is nice to print and put in your binder. This is the curricular integration. What I wanted to do is make sure that you were able to use these centers as you need them. So let's say that you're working on visualizing, or let's say that you're working on, you want your kids to practice sight words. I took, like, there's different activities in the Partner Reading Center materials, and I took them and I listed them out by like topic or even like genre. I just wanted you to be able to go to the sheet and say like, okay, like I'm looking for a center that deals with this. And so if you print that out, put it in your binder, it makes it really easy to do, to look at it at a glance. So I would print that as well. Okay. Let's see. So now we're really getting into the lessons that I teach at the beginning of the year. I wanted you to have lessons that you could just like pick up and use to get the center going, because that's half the battle, right? Is teaching kids expectations and getting it started at the beginning of the year. So at this point in the file, this is basically, I believe, what the rest of the file is. And I did print these. Yeah, I did. Am I looking at the right thing? Yeah, I did print these lessons out. If you like to have the hard copies, I recommend printing them out. But these are the things that you that you use at the beginning of the year just to set up the center. And the schedule will tell you like, okay, week 1, teach this, week 2, teach this. The schedule will walk you through all of this. And then the lessons are there for you to be able to teach your kids what they need to know to be able to do the center correctly. And I will say with some of these things, you don't necessarily have to teach them at the beginning of the year, like they make more sense to teach a little bit later on, but I did indicate that in the schedule. Okay, I believe that's all the most important stuff and the stuff that you're going to want to print from that file. This is just these, so these are cover sheets. I wish I brought an example for you, but I forgot. These are cover sheets for the choices. So I like to give my kids choices in a center. And as you'll see in a minute, in every single file, there are these visual directions. So like for one activity, there's like visual directions. And then another activity, there's visual directions. So you can take like a binder ring, I'm trying to show you here, take a binder ring and put the different choices that kids have in the center if they do have choices. And this is the cover. That can be the cover sheet for the choices that they have. So that is at the end of the file. And I think that's pretty much all I wanted to share about that. So again, this was the Start Here file. You guys having trouble accessing the link? There we go. It looks like it did post. You might have to scroll down in the comments a little bit to see it. This that we just looked at was the Partner Reading Center. And again, the things that I think are the most important to print are the, go back and just show you that page that has all the lessons and the list of materials so you know what you have, because I want you to be able to make use of it all. The schedule that shows you what to introduce each week, the curricular integration part that shows you like just what falls under what topics, and then the lesson plans that introduce the center. Because again, if you have this bundle, these are done for you. Don't reinvent the wheel. You can use my lesson plans, adapt them if you need to, but they will help you set up the entire center. And so, like I said, there is one of these files for the Partner Reading Center, independent reading, reading response, writing, listening, word work, and then for Kinder, the Dramatic Play Literacy Center. So it seems like a lot, and it is, but I promise that if you spend time in these files, in these Start Here files, like you will get set up. And if you want to do a binder, if you just want to print stuff and have it in like a folder, however you want to do it, if you like print this stuff and look at it before the year, this will set the foundation for your centers throughout the year. You'll have a good foundation and you won't be constantly like trying to reinvent the wheel or figure out what you have. So a little bit of time spent up front will definitely, I think, be beneficial to you. Okay, so we've looked at the Start Here for the whole bundle, which was a lot smarter. It's not a lot smarter, a lot smaller. And we looked at the Start Here for one of the individual components. For the center, and you're going to have multiple PDFs for each center. Now, there are more than enough things in here to last you through the year, more than likely. What I wanted to do is make sure that you have choices, because that I know that every school is different, every teacher is different, every class is different. So don't feel like you have to print all of this stuff, because you don't. And I'll make my recommendations when I look through this file with you. And don't feel like you need to get to it, all of it throughout the year, because you may not. I just wanted to give you more than you need, not to overwhelm you, but just so that you will have choices and you won't run out of stuff, because I don't want you to run out of stuff to do. All right, so I now have opened one example of an activity from the Partner Reading Center. And this activity I called Rereading with Character Voices. And it's all about fluency. It's about having kids reread or retell text and use like, special voices, or think about how their characters are showing expression, and then make their reading voices match that. So this is one example of an activity from the Partner Reading Center for first grade. So every center is going to have a cover sheet. And on that cover sheet, it tells you what the center is, goals, Common Core standards, what to print, because that's a big one, right? It tells you exactly what to print to make it easy. It tells you what other materials you might need, how to prep and set it up, differentiation options. I know that, again, not all kids are the same, not all classes are the same. You may want to differentiate for different kids. You may want to make it harder or easier as the year goes on. Those suggestions are included there. I talked about how you can hold kids accountable, and then variations of the center. And my recommendation is to print out this sheet. It's nice to have in your binder if you print one for each of the centers. So like I have, this is Partner Reading. I guess I labeled this number 6. So like this is activity 6A, 6B, and then the one that we're looking at is 6C. So I have this cover sheet in my binder. And there's really not that many. It really doesn't like fill up the binder or anything by any means, but it's nice to have them there, because when you're planning, you're like, okay, I need something for the Partner Reading Center. Let me go to my binder and let me look at this activity and see how to do it and how to set it up. So that is there in the file. If you want to print it out, there's an introduction lesson plan that shows you how to introduce the activity. I wrote it all out for you. You may not need that. I did print off and I put it on like the back of the sheet or whatever here. So in one page protector, I have the center activity, the center like description, and then on the other side, I have a lesson plan to introduce it. I would not bother with the troubleshooting lessons, but if you are having some issues, your kids are having issues with the center, you can always go back to the file. And I have like some problems that have arisen with my kids, and then how you solve the problem, or how you get over that little obstacle. Okay, so I wouldn't bother printing the troubleshooting lessons unless you really want to for whatever reason. All right, so then in this file, which again is just one example of the many activities that are in the bundle, you get any materials that are supposed to be printed. And that cover sheet will tell you what may or may not need to be printed. Color in black and white. And then also the visual direction. So I mentioned this earlier. I like to give my kids options in their center. And so the way I do this, so I actually accomplish 2 things with these visual directions. If I have like a couple of pages, and you can do the half sheets, sometimes it's nicer just to do the half sheets to save paper. But if you want to do like, they can do this activity and they can do another one, print these off for both activities, put them on a binder ring, and they can flip through and see like, oh, these are my choices. In addition, the visual directions, of course, tell them what to do. And you would already have taught this. You would already have shown them how to do this, especially with like kinder and first, like they can't really read this text. But the pictures will remind them what to do in the order of things. So that's in there. I do recommend printing it out. And so like that's one activity. So like you can see there's like really not a lot to print. Now, this particular folder or this particular envelope does not actually match. This is 6C and this is like 6A, so I apologize for that. I was just grabbing what was handy as an example for you. But the teacher stuff, so like this is what the center looks like, this is how to introduce it. The teacher stuff goes in this binder. And this is just really for my own planning. Now I also keep these manila envelopes, and they're not fancy, but they're cheap. And I will have one for every center, and I'll put in it the stuff that the kids are gonna need. Like for like these printables, this is something that they're using. I would, like make copies and put them in here. ahead of time, and then I'll write on the manila envelope what else I need for the center. So don't know if you can see that there. I know the screen's a little small, but I made notes to myself about how to get the center ready. So my planning process is like this. I go to my binder, I'm like, hey, I think we're gonna do 6A or 6C. Then I go to my little envelope here, and I actually store my envelopes in these Sterilite bins, and I'm gonna drop right here. I pulled this link out for you. This particular link shows you like how I organize it with the envelopes and the bins, and it gives you a link to the bins on Amazon. So I'm just gonna drop that here. It might take a second to show up. But anyway, I have this envelope for each activity. It tells me what to do. So the planning process is like, oh, I'm looking in my binder, I choose an activity. And of course I have to teach it to the kids if I haven't taught it yet. Then I go to my manila envelope. I grab out the printables, like this stuff that the kids would be using. And I also grab any other materials that I would need. Because if you need like dice or magnetic letters or whatever, you're not gonna have enough, I mean, maybe you do, but that would be crazy. You're not gonna have enough materials to keep them always in this manila envelope or whatever you use. So that's why I like to list out what else I need. And then when I'm ready to put the center out, I take whatever's in here that the kids are gonna use, I grab whatever else I need, and then it goes in the center. And I like store it for the kids in different ways, but those Sterilite bins that are in the link that I just dropped in the chat, those are a good way to like keep this stuff together for the kids, because those bins, the size that they are, I have one over here, but I won't get up and leave you. The size that they will fit papers and they'll fit a good amount of material. So if you're looking for good bins, those in the post that I just dropped there in the chat, those are good to look at. Okay, so I know this is a lot of information. I swear, once you have this set up, your life will be so much easier. But we just looked at an example of like one activity, and I showed you how I put like the lesson and the cover sheet in my binder, and any printables go in the manila envelope. Now, every single activity also has variations, and that comes back to my desire to give you a lot of options, to give you the option to change something up throughout the school year, make it harder, just make it more interesting for the kids. And so like 99%, I would say, of the files will also have these activity variations. Do you want to print everything out right away? If you're just starting with a bundle, I would just start with the core activity, and then you can always come back and be like, okay, well, I do want to do this variation, or I don't want to do this variation, because every variation also comes with visual directions. And if you're not going to use the variation, like, why print it? Now, if you love printing and you've already printed, like, no worries, you can definitely make use of all of this stuff for sure. But if you're just like, I just want like the minimum thing to get started, I would not worry about printing all the variations, because there often are a lot of different things for you to choose from, and you may just not need or want them all. So again, for every little file, I would recommend printing page 2, which is the center cover sheet, the lesson to introduce the center, and then of course like your visual directions and any activities or any printable materials that go with the center. And that's about it. So I know that I have missed some questions here. So I think the bins link might take a second to show up. I do see it, but I'll put it one more time. Because I think with this software, there might be like a way to bins on it. Okay. So it might take a second to show up. Okay, so Alexa says, do you have this to be editable? We have to make the directions into I can statements and have our outcomes on them, and I am from Canada. Okay, so Alexa, like this particular sheet, I think you're referring to the visual directions, right? So this is not simply because like I use graphics, and when I purchase the graphics, I have to agree not to share them. And so if I were to make them editable, then I would be sharing all the graphics, and I don't want to violate copyright. I want to honor people's work. But what I do have in the Partner Reading Center is I have these, where are they? I have a link for you. Sorry if I'm making you dizzy by scrolling so quickly. I have editable student directions card templates. And so if you look for that page, Alexa, and you click here, there are templates where it's not going to have everything written out like here, but you can type stuff in, you can add, you know, your own I can statement. So I don't know if that helps. Hopefully it does a little bit. Brooke, good. I'm glad this helps. I'm glad. Good. Oh, I see. Yeah, so some people are having issues with the links. I'll come back, and when we're done here, I will add the all the links that I just did into the post itself, and that way you should be able to click them. Sorry about that. This software that I use, I don't think I've tried to drop links in here before. Okay, I'm going to scroll down and see what questions I have. All right. Okay, so some people are asking about split grades, and that's a really good question. Generally speaking, if you teach like first and second, my recommendation is always to get like the first grade version. And the reason for that is, to me, it's easier for me to differentiate up by like giving harder activities or working, you know, one-on-one or in small groups with my kids. It's easier for me to differentiate up than it is to differentiate down, because if something's too hard, then it's just too hard, right? But the nice thing about these is they're flexible. So all of these, like in the first grade, which is what I recommend for you, Paula, all of these, you know, can be adapted to become more difficult. So I really think that they will work for your first and second graders, and definitely use those variations. Like I said, every single activity has these activity variations, and you can probably use those to differentiate too. Okay. You are welcome, Carla. Okay, awesome. Amy does see the link. Great. Okay, so that is all I had planned to chat about. Just to recap, so these are my Kinder First and Second Grade Literacy Center bundles. These are what are on sale through Friday, July 19th. That sale turns off at midnight Eastern time. And we talked today about the order of things when you're going into things and setting things up. And my recommendation was to start with the Start Here file for the whole bundle, and then to start going into the different folders and read the Start Here file for every center. And from your Start Here file, you can print and put in your binder. If you want to have a binder, folder, whatever, you can print like your whole list of materials so you see what you have. You can print your schedule, you can print the curricular integration, and you can print the lesson plans that you teach at the beginning of the year to set up the center. And so all of that comes from the Start Here file for the whole bundle, or the mini bundle within the bundle. Then when you start getting into the individual PDFs for the specific activities, I recommend just printing the cover sheet for like the center, the introduction lesson plan. If you like, you can put them in your teacher binder. And then I recommend printing the materials for the actual center and the visual directions. You can stick those in like a little manila envelope or whatever you like. And then I don't recommend printing out the variations unless you want to. If you want to just print everything and be done, like go for it. But if you want to just do kind of like, what do I need to get started? That's a good place to start. So then you would go through and do that for every single activity. It does take a little time, but like I said, you will be so happy once you have all of these envelopes and it tells you what to add, which you can just get from like here. It describes it. When it's time for you to plan for centers, you just look at your binder, you know what you need, you go grab your envelope. It will make things so much easier. So I hope that this was helpful. I'm glad this was helpful, Paula. I will come in and put those links so that they are live so that you can like click them back in the post. God willing, hopefully it will let me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you do think of questions later, do feel free to comment. I'll come back and check the post. If you get started and you're confused, no worries. You can always email me for help. I'm happy to help. I want to make sure that you fully use this because it is a lot of stuff. And I want to make sure that you use it to make your life easier and to benefit your kids. All right. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.